long as everything's rolling on live, we're good. So you're joining the Eyes of Indigo, we hope, if y'all are out there. Thank you.
Yes,
And Margot, I'll let you do your thing while I make sure I'm gonna take off
absolutely.
our last names here. So go ahead.
Make room for everything. Welcome to Eyes of Indigo. Thank you for everyone who had patience to wait for us for the past 8.5, 9 minutes while technology kicked our asses. Who all can attest to having the same thing happen for the past 2 years? Amen.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Now my computer's telling me we've got junk files. Okay. Little pop-ups everywhere agreeing with me. And hey there, we've got Bridget and we've got Dale and Jeannie
And
on
we've
the
got
air with
somebody from
us.
YouTube and Facebook, so they're both working.
Yay!
Yay!
Sometimes Facebook wants to be a little cantankerous. Welcome. Bridget, thank you for bringing us that affirmation as well.
Yes.
We appreciate you guys. Here at Eyes of Indigo, we talk about weird stuff in a rational way. Thus, we have a guest named Nicole.
Perfect fit.
I'm teasing you. So we do come to you guys through YouTube and Facebook once a week ever since September of 2020. I'm Margot. The other side is Iris, and Nicole is our guest speaker presenter in the middle. Yeah, Nicole DePaul. And you can also, well, I also want to say hello to our future listeners that are grabbing this through recordings. This becomes an audio. Therefore, we read the comments from Facebook, from YouTube out loud so that audio people and the other platform can continue with the conversation and know what it is we're commenting on when people participate, which is the next point I want to make. Please feel free to participate. Say hello, type in the chat, type in the comments on your Facebook, on your YouTube during the show. We are live, and feel free to comment on what we're saying, make comments, whatever you want to say. And and some people are aware of past shows that we've done with readings and good stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But tonight we have a very specific topic, and that is yoga. Mm-hmm. Yes. Iris, where do you want to go from here?
Okay, so the yoga, as we said, it's Nicole DePaul, and she is with Om Sweet Om Yoga and Fitness. She is on the East Coast in North Carolina. And we're going to talk to her about her knowledge about yoga and and other healing modalities, and just kind of find out a little bit. So Nicole, give us a little bit of your background, and we know you've got a studio, but they don't know. I know, but I think Margot's probably been there. I haven't, but do so. Welcome, first of all, and
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I have a yoga studio in Sunset Beach. It's called Om Sweet Om Yoga and Fitness. I do a whole bunch of different types of yoga classes. I do also some postural alignment classes. I do a men's actually, or women's as well, golf fitness. Before I was as heavily into yoga as I am, I was maybe 20 years in the fitness industry. So it's been my full-time gig forever, really, or it seems like forever, for the last 25 years. Yeah. And I just turned 50. So half my life. Yeah. So I worked in fitness most of my earlier days and wasn't really that much into yoga. I didn't really understand it. I was young and it wasn't my time yet. Interestingly enough, I was introduced when I was about 16 and by one of the greatest teachers I could have ever imagined, but the seed was planted. I was too young. I was really too young to wrap my head around it really well. So I'm forever grateful for that person who tried to introduce me to the deeper philosophy of yoga, not necessarily the physical postures, but the rest of it. But at 16, I wasn't quite ready. It was, I'm really, really grateful for that seed to have been planted. Interestingly enough, it was a guy I was dating when I was 16, and his father was trying to introduce us to it because we were trying to find a higher level of consciousness, let's say it that way, in,
Sure.
let's say, a less natural way. We were, gosh, I'm jumping right into it, with the use
No,
of
it's okay. That's what we
whatnot.
want. Yeah.
And his father came to us and said, you can get there without that. And I remember that, and he tried to show us meditation and different techniques. And, I absorbed it all, and he was a big part of my life for a while. And then we went our separate ways. Interestingly enough, that man I was dating is now one of the greatest yogis I've ever known. He has a PhD from Harvard in Sanskrit, and he traveled.
Wow.
Yeah. And also from Berkeley in meditation. He's a professor of meditation at Berkeley and travels the world translating different text and manuscripts that have never been translated from way back in the Common Era, way back when. So he's really well known. But interestingly enough, at that time, neither of us were on that path. Went way separate ways, and then reconnected just through social media and whatnot, and not a personal relationship deeply. But yeah, so I was introduced to it way back then, but I wasn't ready. So I went on a different path for a while, and then found it again. Yeah, and then found it again. So it's been for the past.
How did you find it again? You went to a friend's class, or?
I did. Interestingly enough, I went. I was finished maybe 12 years ago. I was done teaching a men's golf fitness class. I was tired as can be. Was on my way home and stopped at the Red Barn Studio there in Little River, and went in. And I really don't know why I did it. Wasn't in my nature to do that in the evening, and I kind of liked it. And Claire, an instructor, Claire Little, who a lot of local people know, she was teaching and doing this mantra that just really felt good. It just really felt good. So then I kept going back, and I have to say I was the last one there and the first one to leave. I didn't really I wasn't sure I wanted to do this yet. I didn't want to be seen and known. And I just kept going.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah. And I kept going. And then I signed up to do a little yoga vacation with her, which was odd. I didn't know anybody, and went to Jamaica for 7 days, and then came back, and then forgot about it a little while, and then went to Google how do I learn to teach this? And it took me down this path that's been extremely interesting for the last 12, 15 years. Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. Yeah. The yoga teacher trainings I had signed up to do continued to be canceled. It was like, okay, I'd wait 6 months, and then it was canceled. And then 2 years went by, and they were canceled. And I remember thinking, oh, for goodness sakes, when am I going to have to go to India? And I was kidding. I was like to myself, what am I going to have to do? I was so disappointed. What am I going to do? Go to India? And ironically, my next personal training client called me or texted me that she wasn't feeling well. So I had an hour to kill. So I started Googling, yoga training in India. And yeah, a few months later, there I was.
How many times have you been to India since then?
Yeah, it was a really neat fall of events. My mother was really interesting, and I had said to her, I can't believe this keeps being canceled. And then she said to me, and it's not in her character to say it this way, she said, maybe when things seem like they're falling apart, they're really coming together. And I was like, well, that was very deep for you.
That's very 4D. That's very 4D chaos.
It was.
That's very.
And I was
next
thinking
level.
of mentioning India. She's going to say, oh, no, don't go. What are you, nuts? So, yeah.
No, that's not where the energy was. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really interesting, and everything it was just green lights, green lights, green lights. So I just kept taking the next step. And
what was the first year you went to India? What year was that? The first time that you went to India?
Oh, no.
In the 90s? Early?
No.
2000s?
Yeah, like maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, just about 8 years ago, probably. Yeah, it wasn't that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe 9. Time flies by fast. I haven't really thought about it 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, and I went by
So
myself. Yeah, so
Ooh,
it was a neat adventure.
that's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
times have you been to India for
I think
this kind of thing since
5,
then?
4 or 5.
So
Yeah.
almost every other year, every
Yeah,
year.
and I'm getting that itch again. Funny, I just mentioned to my husband, I was like, do you think I can go in February? Like, what if I start thinking about it? But I'm gonna wait. I just got back in March from my last trip for training. And when I go
Mhm.
there, it's very, very serious. I love it. I go find either my previous teacher or a new, very good teacher and stay in an ashram and full immersion. It's a beautiful time. Yeah, it's a beautiful time.
I've
Yeah, I'm really
loved
glad it worked out.
I've loved watching and listening to the videos that you sent back while you were there of
Yeah,
what life was like day to day and walking through the village
yeah.
and your travel companion, and people would hand you their children for a photo op and a blessing.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to ask you about that. What the heck is what is this about handing Americans your baby?
I know.
Total
So one
strangers.
time we
What
were
is
on
that
a
about? I know it's
100-foot
cultural.
cliff. I was standing on the edge of a 100-foot cliff, and there's a few-month-old baby. They're handing it to me, and they love
And that happened quite a few times off and on.
all the time. I've had so many babies. This one, I went with a gentleman named Larry this time, and I said no thank you to the baby. And then he said, you can't say no thank you when someone's handing you your baby. So I was like,
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, you take this one.
What do the
yeah.
parents want by handing you the
I
the
think
baby?
they like that. Truly, I think they like the social media picture with a white person.
Yeah.
I really do. I hate to
Yeah.
be that simple about it, but it's kind of a novelty. And for many Indians, they like to have Americans on their pictures and their social media. And
They
I
want
didn't
to
mean
be international looking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they're very interested in you and what you do, and they ask so many questions and are extremely interested in your lifestyle and want to ask you questions and spend time with as much time with you as possible. Genuinely. Yeah, it's invite you into their homes, their cars. It's really a neat experience, but definitely the pictures. We were at the Taj Mahal and I felt like I needed security. It's like, it was like 17,000 pictures later. It was crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
But
couldn't walk
they're
without
lovely
somebody
people.
taking a picture of you.
Yeah. Lovely people.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a really good way to start my yoga journey with what I felt like is a very authentic experience, going to Northern India and to Rishikesh and full immersion into it. And it was 6 days a week, 5 a.m. till about 9:30 at night. So it was full immersion and very serious. There was no messing around, and it was fabulous. Yeah.
So from early in the morning till late at night, can you give us an overview of what a typical daily schedule would be? Exercises, break, eating, not eating, not breaking. What did you do?
Oh gosh, some of it's going to sound weird. You
That's
wake
what
up.
we're hoping for.
We like
You
weird.
wake up in the
We like
morning
weird.
and, around 5, and you floss your nostrils. You do the neti pot and floss the nostrils, which was difficult at first to push the wire up and around and floss the nostrils.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to demonstrate that?
No, I haven't done it since. The neti pot, yes. Yeah.
There's somebody that's got an ad out in America for one of these things that it's like, and that's the idea is it's like you should be cleaning your nostrils out every day, and they talk about shoving it up one side of your nose and it coming down the other, and it flushes it out, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
I can't do the neti pot thing either.
I can do neti pot. I can do that.
Neti pot was easy. It was this rubber tube thing, flossing, and you're up there on the rooftop, and everyone's flossing their nostrils, and so anyway, and then we would you'd scrape your tongue. It's this whole cleansing, it's this whole cleansing ritual, basically.
Yeah, that's
And
a
then
major
getting ready for
contact
pranayama and cleaning
point.
it out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a major contact point between chakras. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then
Okay.
from there, we went into a mantra class where we, by the end of our session, we had to be able to teach, probably about 15 Sanskrit mantras with perfect pronunciation of each word, and be able to not just chant them, but teach them to somebody else. So each morning we had mantra class, and then we went to, depending on which session I was in, I did last 2 times ago or 3 times ago, I think I did like an Ashtanga. So you had 2 hours of physical yoga. And then you ate breakfast.
What do you eat? What do you eat for breakfast?
Usually it was a lot of khichdi, which is
What's
like
that?
a lentils and beans and rice. It was an Ayurvedic
Carbo loading.
food. Yeah, but it's very clean.
Yeah.
I mean, very clean, very sattvic.
Right.
It's called sattvic food. It's very cleansing. It's very interesting. Yeah. So you would have that or dal. It wasn't normal what we would have for breakfast.
Sure.
Meat, let's say meat is illegal there. Meat and alcohol illegal. So we ate, and then we would go to philosophy, that's where we did a lot of the yoga philosophy, which is the larger part of yoga. Actually, most people think of the physical postures, but that is such a small part of the big picture, is the physical part of it. It's a big part of it, but it's a small part of the entirety. Yeah. And then we'd go to anatomy class, and then pranayama, which is the breathing techniques to help move energy through the body, all of the energy work. And then we'd have lunch and a little break, and then go back to more learning how to properly get into the poses and begin to learn to get into themselves, so we can begin to learn to teach them. It's all energy movement, so it's very important where your foot placement is and exactly where you're pressing, and the energy lines in the body are extremely important when they're done with the intention of I would say genuine yoga. I don't want to insult anybody, or this is my perception of it, an
authentic experience.
Yeah.
Get an authentic
so it really
experience.
does matter, all of that. So we would do that, and then we'd have meditation, and then dinner. And then do it all over again.
I'm curious. So you said you take a break, and lunch and take a break. Everything you're describing is beautifully intense and wonderful and freeing, and has relaxing qualities, and it has
so
intense qualities. Yeah. What the hell do you do for a break? You go listen to music, you walk out of the building, you go pet puppy dogs, you talk.
Do you know what I did? I volunteered I volunteered for an animal rescue there. So of course I did. So
there's not enough to do.
Yeah. So oftentimes I would go there or sit quietly and read, reflect, and I journal and read and write and take notes and study. Sometimes it depends if I were there alone. I did a few trips alone and a few without, with somebody else. So if I was with somebody else, we would walk around. We were right on the Ganges, which is a very holy river there, and sit and meditate by the Ganges. We'd look in the local shops. I had this man at this jewelry store who had this cow that would kind of live in the store, and I had him make this beautiful gold necklace for me of the cow. And so I'd visit him a lot and check in on the cow necklace. And the people there were just so lovely and they were all living the same lifestyle. So you were still immersed in it while you were visiting the cow necklace man, or you're at the Ganges, and you would meet, there'd be a kirtan, which would be a mantra and music, almost like a drum circle. That was always going on by the river, and those types of things, or just sit quietly and reflect and read. Yeah. Wow. So that was that.
Was the river and the kirtan activity and the jewelry shop, was that a part of the ashram community you were in, or was that outside of it?
It was outside, yeah.
Okay.
Outside of it. Yeah,
All
the
right.
streets, the whole in Rishikesh, the entire it's hard to call it a city because it's little one-lane roads with cows all over the place. And
Yeah.
it's very holy. It's the what they consider the birthplace of yoga. The rishis
Mhm.
and the saints and sages all came from the mountains in the Himalayas, and it's where the Ganges comes down. So when you talk about Shiva and all of this, it's like it's where this all happens. Where this is where the water's flowing down, where the locks of his hair. I mean, there's
Oh,
Babas, which are the holy men all over. Every evening they have a huge, what I'll call a gratitude ceremony on the river. And it's just an entire lifestyle in this place. Yeah. It's very special. It's getting a little more commercialized. Last trip I went further north, just to in a place called Dharmashala where the Dalai Lama is living. So
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
time I went up there. Yeah.
Nicole,
Yeah.
there's a question on the board for you.
Yes. Let's
And
see.
It's Janine. Janine says, question for Nicole.
Yes.
Q&A. Absolutely. One, if someone wants to transition over to a more healthy lifestyle to incorporate yoga as a part of their lifestyle, what are some ways to start successfully? If somebody wants to start doing yoga as a healthier lifestyle, what would you recommend as some ways to get them started? What types of yoga?
Yeah.
Where would they search?
I would find, for me, I think it's very communal, where I would find a studio where keep going until there's an instructor that speaks to your heart, where you feel something, you feel something other than stretching, you feel a connection to something greater than yourself. I would find a studio where you feel at home and something about it just feels right to you. And there'll be an instructor that speaks to you. And I'm not everyone's teacher, and nobody is. It doesn't mean someone's good or bad. It's just you connect with somebody more than somebody else, or their style. I would say I would start at something that they would call gentle, either a gentle or a yin or a restorative, where depending on your physical ability, I would probably start with something gentle. But for me, even greater than that is a connection to the studio. Something feels good about it. The energy in it feels welcoming. It feels good. And you may have to shop around a little bit. I think a big, I hate to say mistake, but that's what I'll call it, people make is they go to one and they assume that's yoga. And it isn't necessarily so. It's that instructor studio's interpretation of it.
Well,
Like I'm only teaching my interpretation of what I learned, so
Right.
and they're teaching theirs. So the energy will feel right and you'll just know. And you'll know. And just anytime if I go on vacation or if I move, the first thing I do is find a studio, and that becomes home. It becomes home to me, where those are my people. And it takes me a few to find that. And sometimes it's the first one. Sometimes it is not.
okay. So Nicole, let me throw something at you that is a little bit. Okay, I get it, because I know that there are a lot of people that they go to gyms or they go to yoga studios and they love the group experience and all that stuff. There was a time when I even led like exercise classes for older adults and mentally challenged adults and that kind of thing. So it was low key, because I've never been a big exercise person, but I could do the low key kind of stuff and get them moving and that sort of thing. I enjoyed it if I was leading it. But if I'm in an exercise class, or when I would go to the gym, even when I used to go to a gym, I would kind of stick to myself and work on equipment. And I might say hey to people, but I never really felt camaraderie in a gym. And I hated going to the classes because you've always got one or two that are like, what are you doing? And it's like, God, would you shut up and chill out?
Yeah.
It's just too extreme, and like I used to work in a place where they offered yoga classes, and I could have gone, but I didn't feel comfortable enough knowing it was like everybody else had been going, and I didn't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
be the new person in the class.
Mm.
And I've actually thought about doing yoga at home. One of my problems is I have bad knees. So I
Mhm.
can't get down on my knees. I can't, I can do stretches and things like that. And I've lost a lot of weight, and I'm wanting to do more exercising and toning, but I have no cartilage in my knees.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I want to do is go into a class where I'm having to revamp everything they're trying to get me to do. I would rather be focused, and plus the time getting in the car, because there's nothing near me. It takes me 30 minutes to get anywhere.
Yeah. Mhm.
She lives pretty far out in the country.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, what does somebody do in that case? And I'm sure there's other people like me that I'm
Oh,
hoping.
absolutely. So those who don't want to join in a class, and I have to say I'm similar to that. Shockingly, I am. Maybe minus the knee stuff. There's thank goodness there's so much online now. There are so many good YouTube. There's so many people do this yoga with Adriene on YouTube. And that's kind of a really good place to start, to where somebody can gain some confidence and know something, so they don't feel like the odd man out. They come in, they know something, and decide if they want to go in to a group at all or not. But there are so many YouTube instructors, and there's so many apps even on the smart TVs. It's a beautiful time to be in that situation, as opposed to 20 years ago when none of that was available, because there are so many options. And since COVID, and I had to shut my studio for 10 months, there's even more. Everybody now has online stuff where you can begin to practice at home. I think once somebody starts to practice with a good instructor online, they'll see that there's ways to work around the knees. There's ways to work around all of it. There are props that will help with everything. And you can buy them at home. They're not expensive. It's 2 yoga blocks, some knee pads, a strap, and kind of fumble. I don't want to say fumble, but it's what it'll be. Fumble your way through it at first and figure it out in your pajamas in the comfort of your own home, without, I used to call them, this sounds mean, but when I was teaching like step aerobics and all that back in the 90s, like the front row ladies, you don't have
that's
those
exactly what I'm
front
talking
row
about.
ladies who are,
They just,
yeah, and they're intimidating, and it's not their fault. We can be intimidated by them. It's, I
It's
like
almost like
choice.
they need their own special class. Give the regular people a class, and let the intense people have their own little class, and they can try to compete
The yoga
with each
Karens.
Yes,
yes.
yes.
The yoga
And-
Karens.
But I think I think with yoga, you'll find that it's within you that is the one who might be feeling, I don't mean you personally, but intimidated or uncomfortable. And the other people they're just doing their thing, and they're very welcoming. And with yoga, it's so greater than oneself. That's the whole concept. It's all of the oneness, and it's huge. Somebody who's into yoga truly would never intimidate another person intentionally. But then we have to look at ourselves, and am I intimidated? Is it me? Most of the time I can say it probably is, but for somebody who does not want to join a class, there are so many opportunities online, and there are so many props. And I recently, my last trip to India, did a whole training with it's called Iyengar Yoga, and it's what I would call the king of props, setting everything up that every single body can get into. I don't want to say every pose, but
Oh,
Nope.
we lost her. Uh-oh.
The
She'll be
signal
back.
went down.
Yeah, we must have
More
had
than
a
likely, she's talking and doesn't know it right away.
yeah. So we'll
Hopefully,
give her a
she'll
minute.
sign back in.
Yeah.
Iris, that was an excellent question for how to people that don't have the time or the distance or the inclination for groups, and she named a popular yoga program
Yeah,
on
she said
YouTube.
yoga with Adrian. So I'm gonna look
Adrian,
that
thank
up.
you for reminding me.
And I'm
Yoga with
curious.
Adrian.
I want to get her to talk a little bit too about the spirituality behind yoga. Because some
So
people
we'll
don't
shift
understand
that's
that.
part
They
of
think,
it.
okay, well, it's stretching and exercise, or
And she
they think
mentioned
it's
there's
living in an
philosophy.
ashram. And there's it's something in between. And I do want to
And
hit that.
and
Here
she
she
alluded,
is.
she alluded to that there's a philosophy that's a bigger part of yoga. And if Janine, if you're still out there, if you have a part one question, if you have a part two question, that'd be great. Nicole
Yeah.
came
Can you
back.
see that?
Yay!
I
I'm
don't know
gonna
what
throw
happened.
Margot off for a minute and bring you back, Margot. So okay, but Nicole, while you were gone, I was talking to Margot and I said I want to hear more too about the happy medium between. Okay, like some people think yoga and they go, okay, it's an exercise class, you're stretching and twisting and whatever. And then other people think it's like this whole wild religion cult thing. And you go off and live in an ashram and you're just doing
Why
om all
not?
day long. Yeah. And so but there's what is it what should people look for, or what is the expectation? I mean, do you go in with I need a good exercise class and I'm going to do this because it's calming and soothing, or should you go in with an expectation of peace, calm, serenity, and oneness, and the byproduct is you get to stretch it out?
It depends.
Okay,
most people, this is the best question ever. Most people arrive wanting to stretch, and then they find so much more, and they're surprised. It's like you just give them little bits and pieces, and it creates more of the wholeness of yoga. With all of my training, I still don't have the whole thing.
So what do you mean by the wholeness? What kind of bits and pieces and wholeness of yoga?
Here,
Are you making her drink
I can explain it fairly simply. In yoga, we deal with, I was thinking about how would I explain this, because it's years and years of deep study for me. How do I explain it? In yoga, in the yoga philosophy, we deal with what we call the 5 layers of the self. So most people arrive with intending to work on what I call the first layer. They're called koshas. I'm going to leave out some of the big Sanskrit words just to make it more tangible. Yeah. So they're called, the koshas are called the sheaths. So the layers of the self. So imagine you have 5 sheaths. So let's say the first one would be what we call the food body, the physical body, the food body. Most people come in to work on that. And that's I think it's obvious, right? The physical body, what our food creates, what we've built. And then the next layer would be the energy body. So each layer becomes a little bit of a finer energy, if you will. So we have a denser, we can see this, we can feel our body, we see our muscles, we feel our bones, this hurts, and we can point where it is. It's very tangible. Mm-hmm. And then we go to the next layer, which is the energy body. And that's so in the physical practice of yoga, the poses are working more. Let's say they come in for the food body, and then we begin to work on what's called the pranamaya kosha, which is the energy body. And that's where we begin to do more of the breath work, where we're working on movement of energy in the body. You could say it's like Reiki, but with the breath. You're sending it to certain places. You're healing certain areas. You're calming the mind. So much of it is calming the mind chatter. We're beginning to create a still pond. And we're beginning to notice what in yoga is called vritta, which are the ripples of the mind. So we're beginning to smooth those out by using the breath to work with the different energy in the body. The quality of the mind, we're trying to bring it to a state of equanimity, where we're not high, we're not low, equanimity, like just keep it equal. So we have the energy body, and there's different processes in yoga that work with each of these bodies, if you will. And then we have what we call the thought, the mind, body. There's two different layers of that. The first one would be the one that's our senses, what we're taking in through our five senses. And it's also what's making our body work. If we were in a coma, this stuff would still work, type of thing. So there's certain yoga for that, and what we're taking in through our senses. And then we would take it to the fourth body, which would be the what I would call the intellect. And that's our discernment. What we consider separates us from animals, where we're not operating strictly on instinct, where we can discern and make decisions based on prior knowledge. If that makes sense. Is this making sense? Yes.
Yeah.
And then we take it to what we call the bliss body, which is our devotion, our bliss, our joy, God, our full absorption is what I would call it, where you become fully absorbed with the whole and with the divine. So in yoga, we're hitting all of those. Most people come in to stretch, and then all of a sudden they start to feel good. And at first they're doing some of the breath work and like, okay, this feels stupid. I'm breathing in here and I don't know why I'm doing this. And then usually one day it just clicks. We kind of surrender to the mind and just feel it. And it's like, wow, you know what? This works. And we start to feel better. And we're sending the energy to different places. When we're doing mantra, we're working more on what we call the bliss body, our full devotion to something greater than ourselves. So when we work with the koshas, and that's what's happening in every yoga class, is I don't want to say every, but a complete yoga class, we're touching on all of those layers. So they come in for one, but get a little more, and it becomes something so much greater than what we entered the session for.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. I can say that for me, yoga's fairly complete practice. I have yet to find a hole in it where you're doing the physical body, the energy body, the senses, and we learn to detach from the senses, where we're not ruled by them. We're not ruled by pleasure. We can accept it and experience it and let it go the same way we would something that's not pleasurable, see them all the same. So there's a whole bunch of which detachment, where we're just experiencing the moment exactly the way it is, not needing it to be any different. And as we go through our physical practice, it's teaching us that as well. It's teaching us to hold the pose. Do I like it? Doesn't really matter. I'm experiencing it. I'm learning to be able to breathe myself and breathe my mind to a place of equanimity, to where I'm not living in a world of good and bad anymore. It just simply is. And I'm experiencing exactly as it's presenting itself in that moment.
Letting go of attachment, letting go of the outcome.
Letting
go of labeling the experience.
All of that. That's yoga.
So with the different poses and stuff, is that it? I know that the poses, of course, are stretching different body parts and that sort of thing. But is there a reason as far as energetically why the pose?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have, and you're probably familiar with the different meridian lines in the body when you're working with acupressure, acupuncture. So we're intentionally closing one, opening another, pressing on one point and another. And you can actually add that in. I took a pretty long 2-year course in Acu Yoga, which combined acupressure with different yoga poses, which was very interesting to combine the two. Some of them you can use the floor, you can use, you're pressing on it in certain ways. So that was very intentional. Yeah, that's done quite often in yoga. So it just, to me, as soon as you roll out your mat and begin, it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to where, as much as I've studied and done, I still feel, the more I know, the more I don't know. The more I realize I don't know. It becomes, every door that's open becomes bigger. But the main thing I can say about it is it's really a scientific path to life without suffering. And how do we do that in our mind? When you asked about the religious part of it, people will have different ideas on that. I can say mine. I don't see how it can be truly practiced without a deep spiritual intention.
But it's not like it's universal. It's not
exactly. Yeah, it relates back to the Hindu religion a lot because of its origins.
Sure.
You can think about, let's even say like Shiva. We had that statue we were setting up downstairs. We can think of Shiva as like the unmanifested form, which some will just call the soul. When we say Shakti, that's our manifested form. That's our body. That's what's tangible. And when the two combine, it's like this beautiful thing. And all of the deities they represent something. They represent
universal concepts that show up in other types of spirituality.
Universal concepts so there's a way to take those into, I think, any religion or just spiritual being.
Spiritual practice, right?
Yeah. And then there are ways where you get a great benefit from it if you take all that out of it and you just breathe and feel good and you just move your body and feel good. You live a very disciplined lifestyle that sets you up to not suffer, which can easily be done without any of that. So it depends on what level you want to go with it and what feels right to somebody. Westernized yoga is a lot of it, what I call gym yoga. Nothing wrong with it. People feel good. They're moving their body. They're moving energy. They're doing great things. Nothing wrong with it. I choose to take it a little bit, a different path with it, which works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
based
funny
on
how
the environment and what your clients want. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that as an instructor is interesting to see what they want to do. Like, okay, am I going to freak everyone out and none of these people are going to come back? You know what? It took me a while to be comfortable in my practice to present it in the way that feels genuine to me. And I'm not everyone's teacher. It's just the way it is.
It is what it is for that.
Yeah. And I try not to feed them more. You feed them too much, you make them sick. You kind of thing. Sometimes it just feels really right to go down this much deeper path in a class. And sometimes it feels right to stay a little more surface and tangible. And we just follow that. And so far it's worked well.
I
relate to that. Teaching from intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
With the lemurs.
Come on, inner peace. I don't have all day.
Yoga lemur in there.
People laugh so much because I am
trying to do the poses
at
a beginner
that's
yoga
me.
class.
I love
you got
them.
lemurs falling all over the place.
I know. And what happens is, like, within that journey on your mat, you go through so many dances with ego and dances with spirit and who's leading the dance at what times and why am I not doing this pose? Is it because I'm feeling lazy or I don't want to fail? Or am I not doing it because it's not right for me? And everyone else is doing it and I need to be comfortable. The fact that my knees have no cartilage, this one will cause me suffering. So there's all of this that goes on within ourselves. It's really a self-study. To me, every time I'm on my mat, it's the study of the self.
Conversation with self.
That's all it
That
is.
has implications way beyond that moment, but staying in that moment is what will
you're
get
learning
you to
it
the way beyond.
through this
Yeah.
pose. I'm learning not to be bored because I'm a little high strung, if you can't tell. I'm like, bing, bing, I'm all over the place. So the hardest part in a yoga class for me, even teaching, is when I sit, we settle in and I have them just move their neck up and down. And I always start that way because it's a little selfish. I need to find contentment in something that simple. And we live in a world of overstimulation, and to be able to settle down and be content with just this. Most of our lives aren't our Facebook highlights. Are we missing the moment because it's not flashing and sparkly, and some of the poses you see me do. Yeah. And some of the poses you see me do are not a sign of a advanced practice. To me, an advanced practice for me is staying in a pose for a very long time that's not exciting. Like, can I do that? That to me is my advanced practice. Sitting and breathing, moving my neck up and down, bringing my mind back to center each time it squirrels. It runs off. Can I bring it back? Can I simply do just this? It's easy to do the fancy stuff because it requires my entire attention. Moving my neck doesn't, but can I give that my full attention? And then that in turn teaches me how to give my full attention to, let's say, when my husband is telling me the 9th hole of his golf round. You know what I mean? Can I be present? Can I be present when I'm eating my food and noticing the texture and the taste? Or am I just shoveling it down, somehow thinking the next bite's going to be better? So it's so much a journey of the self. And I've learned so much through this practice about myself. And it's a practice because I fail daily, multiple times a day. Yeah. Oh, it's pretty big.
Thank you.
It's really quite big.
Thank you.
I could go on forever.
Yeah. Well, I got to throw this one up just because it's too darn funny.
It is.
It's a bunch of straws, and one of them's a bendy straw, and it says, apparently she's a yoga instructor.
They're having a little party, and the two girls, straight straws, are talking behind the bendy straw's back. It's cute.
They love
the boy straws are talking to her.
Yeah, exactly.
She is a bendy straw.
Like that you just brought up is interesting to me because oftentimes when I'm somewhere, somebody will ask me, "Oh, you must be a yoga instructor. Do you do yoga?" And I was saying this to Iris before, and I don't know how they know. And they say, you just move like it, you sit like it. And
there's a body language that yoga people do that other people usually don't.
It's interesting.
And then they usually sit down and put their ankle behind their neck or something. I mean,
no, they have really
talk.
It's a posture thing with how you hold your spine relative to your head, and it's that. Yeah. There's a way back to it, but it's all super straight, but still relaxed. Because there's a military version of that type of posture as well. Because same thing, they're required, to do the whole straight back and neck thing for hours on end. But with a yoga person, there's a slight difference. They're still doing the same straightness, but there's a relaxation to the model, to the visual.
And it's interesting when people ask, "Oh, what kind of yoga do you do?" That's always the next question. I never know what to say because how do you explain what I just said?
All of it. Say all of it.
You know what? And
just say all of it.
On my last trip to India, I was walking down. I was up at like 12,000 feet up in the Himalayas, just on the border of Tibet. And I was walking home from my class. And I was like, how do I explain what I just did? Like, you can't. And then the word like freedom came to me. And I was thinking, you know what? If there's not freedom in my practice, it's not yoga. Like, that's what I do. there needs to be this balance of effort and ease. And hatha, when you see hatha yoga, ha means sun, ta means moon. So it's the balance of work and rest. So with each thing I'm doing, and I try to do this in my daily life and I fail regularly. In my practice, I'm thinking, if there's not freedom in this pose, no matter how complicated, it's not yoga. There's a sense of freedom in it, where here's where the work is being put and here's where the rest is happening. And both those things really, in my mind, those are the musts. They must be happening. And there's these 8 limbs to yoga. I won't get all into those, but one of them is like, where are you directing your energy? And is that energy going in the direction you want to go? And we learn that in our pose as well. Let's say something, we all know what warrior 2 looks like. We're out on front. If I'm squeezing my jaw, tensing up here, where's the freedom? Where's the rest? Where's the ease? It's that balance of work and rest that's very important. Because I don't know what to say when people say, what type of yoga do you do? Because in the yoga world, there's many different types. Like there's a yoga of devotion, which is called bhakti, which is mantra, and that's the singing, and that's the absorption in God. You're praising, you're chanting, and it's just delicious, if that makes sense. Yes. And then there's like karma yoga, which is the yoga of action, which is the selfless service. And then there's jnana, which is the yoga of knowledge, where you're self-study, and you may be studying scriptures or whatever it is, but definitely self-study. So in true yoga, it's not really.
Well, and then they're like a hot steam yoga and that type.
Yeah,
of thing
and that's very different.
Bikram yoga. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We won't get into that one. You know about him. He's running around. He's hiding from the whole world for molesting everybody. And there are gurus that will take advantage, like he did, Bikram, that he took advantage of. There are people who are looking for something so deeply, and there's this man or woman, I'm sure it can be the other way around, that they trust so deeply that they do anything they say. So there's going to be the bottom feeders in everything. You're going to have the bottom feeders.
Absolutely. Grifters, we call them grifters, colloquially too. They're con men and women that take advantage of people that express a need. Yeah. And they pretend to meet that need in order to manipulate.
Exactly. And there are plenty of those in the yoga world, because a lot of people who go they're searching, and then you have this person that's you trust because they're wearing all white and their beads and they
say all the right words. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So in hot yoga in India, I've never seen that done. It's interesting. I've not seen that.
It's more of a Western.
There's no goat yoga. There's no beer yoga. There's no. What's interesting to me.
Really? Beer and wine yoga?
I think they ought to have little stills up by the river, that pure water. And
I'm not saying there's some hash going around. I'm not saying they're pure as can be, but no alcohol, no meat. Here's some hash.
That's true. Would be a little bit
counter, that's counterintuitive to that. Yeah.
So with anything, there's going to be different things to it. Western, I found the difference is we tend to, as Westerners, try to add things somehow to make it more. And for me, yoga is stripping it down, removal of everything to get to that.
Yeah.
That light within. When we're saying namaste, I'm saying to you, the light in me sees and respects and honors that light in you. Where let's say I don't like your actions as a human. Oh my gosh, I'm just using Margot as an example. You're not doing this, but she's ego all over the place. Look at her go. She's making a mess. But I still see that soul within, that the human part is the messiness. Right, it's the messy human part. So when we're saying namaste, we're seeing beyond that. And when we go into Shavasana yoga, we're attempting to spend some time with that light within. And that's really what it's all about. The word yoga is to yoke or to join. That's what it means.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, to yoke or to join, which I questioned. Leave it to me to question my Indian guru. I didn't like the word. I don't
Okay.
like the word. I feel like it connotes that it was ever separate. Like I have to do something to join it.
It
I
denotes
didn't like
two
it.
pieces that are not connected. Yeah.
Yeah, like
You
if I
join means
don't
you
do
started
this,
off
it's not
apart.
joined. It's still joined. Everyone who's not doing yoga is still whole.
Yeah.
I didn't like the word, and so I sat with it for a while. They do this to you. They won't answer you. They just have to think about it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so I realized it, and to me it means the practice of the realization of the joining, of the whole.
That you are
It's
joined, which is
the
another word for
intentional
whole.
practice
Yeah.
of the joining of it. Because I didn't really like the word. So it's like
Well,
it
and you're
connotes
right.
that
I mean, we're already connected, but a lot of people don't recognize the pieces that make up the whole.
yeah,
And so I guess in a way, yoga allows you to recognize each
exactly.
piece as you're recognizing the whole. So you don't want to take things and separately. Some people go to church and worship and don't think about what's going on with their bodies.
Yeah.
They're treating
Mhm.
one layer and not another.
Yeah.
But with yoga, it's joining together
Yeah.
all of that so that you can recognize each piece but bring together one whole.
Yeah. And kind of love each piece. Many people think yoga, you're trying to denounce the ego, and I don't see it that way. I feel like you're trying to live peacefully with it and recognize it. And when it's leading the dance and who's leading, and to realize that I'm not trying to get rid of it. I need it. It's important in this form. It's important. And I love her. She's clumsy and messy and ego driven, and oh my gosh, she's a mess. And I watch her from above, like, oh, look at her now, getting all upset over that. And I love watching her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She grows,
that's
you
wonderful.
grow. She changes, you change. You change,
Yeah.
she changes. Yeah.
And then sometimes I pull her in. I'm like, come on, let's get back together. And that realization of all those parts of me and living harmoniously with all of them, and recognizing when I get on my yoga mat, it's my dedicated time to practice that and to reestablish that relationship with the self in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I do the physical body, and as I'm getting older, okay, this hip, and I just turned 50 and things, what do they say? The check engine light's starting to come on.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, and that's an ego, dance with ego, and all those things that aren't permanent, and we learn to let go of that grip of all that isn't permanent. And for me, the one thing that is permanent is that light within. And everything else is going to come right through my fingers. And the more I grip it, the more I suffer. And that's what yoga teaches me through my physical body, my practice, my relationships with other people. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Very cool.
Nicole, this has been awesome. And
it wasn't chaotic. I feel like it was chaotic for me.
No, I thought it was good. I mean,
how do you explain
it was
all
what
that?
it needed to be.
It flowed. Yeah. It was wonderful.
It's so much more than most people realize. And if you can't tell, I love it. Like, I don't know what I did. Can you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's like every day, every moment is the time to practice. When I come off my mat.
Strangers that have no idea what you do ask you, how long have you been doing yoga? That tells you express yoga 24/7.
I do. Like, it's like, I don't do it. I am it. I am it.
Exactly.
My attempt to be.
Well, Nicole, hang tight with us for just a minute. Let's do a couple of things here real quick. All right. So coming up next week, we're going to talk about ghost busting on December 7th. And it's not like we're going to be talking about movies. We're going to be busting up the myths of ghost busting, of ghosts and all the wives'
real
tales
ghost
that are out there.
busting.
Yeah. And then December 14th, we're back with our psychic readings. I know a couple people asked about that early on in the show, but that's not until December the 14th. December 21st is the winter solstice, and we're going to be talking about what
What does that
means
mean?
and the astronomy and astrology and effects of the planets and all that good stuff. December 28th, we're back on our chakras ladder with indigo. We're getting to the top there.
Chakra number 6.
Yes, so we hope you will join us for that. We're getting some good feedback. Everybody
Rosa says, excellent podcast. Thank you to the hosts and Nicole.
Thank you very much.
And then Dale and Jeannie say, beautiful presentation. Thank you for introducing us to Nicole. Great
Yes.
job.
So thank
Yeah.
y'all. Thank you to
That was
all our
from Jeannie.
watchers.
Yeah.
And so please join us next week. We'll be back. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Batting
And-
time, batting chance.
Yeah. Hey. We do
Thank
it
you,
well.
Nicole.
Thank
you.
you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. All rights reserved.